I'm going to describe the combat thriller movie named Mine. Beware of spoilers. Take care and be cautious. A seasoned US soldier named Mike bids a young woman farewell at the airport before taking a chopper to his next assignment. The following scene finds Mike and Tommy waiting for their target to arrive while set up on a cliff overlooking a desert. Mike has a more somber demeanor, whereas Tommy is a talker by nature. On one side, they see a large group of people walking, while on the other, they see a large group of armed vehicles. Syed Asif, a 65-year-old terrorist, is Mike's target. Mike sees that everyone has come for a wedding and that the target could be the groom's father, while Tommy and the radio announcer urge him to carry out the hit. When the bride and groom obstruct the goal, the situation becomes more complicated. Mike is told to kill the groom in order to reach the goal, but he struggles with the idea of killing an innocent person. Mike claims to have lost the objective while lying to his command center. Armed personnel guarding the ceremony then notice the pair. Then there is gunfire. The target instantly flees, and when armed men begin pursuing Mike and Tommy, they are forced to retreat. They destroy their GPS while running in shelter behind a rock formation. When the armed men begin to approach the rock, Mike instantly conjures a death diversion to divert their attention. After escaping the armed men, the pair asks for help, but they are informed that in order to be picked up, they must travel 5 hours over the desert to the settlement in front of them. They started off on foot, enduring heat waves and sandstorms. Mike is amused, or possibly irritated, by Tommy's tales of his son back home. Tommy makes Mike talk after noticing that he is silent and appears to be worried. Mike admits that he is finding it difficult to ask Jenny to marry him. In addition to making fun of him for being so afraid, Tommy tells him that while marriages can be challenging at first, over time you learn how to handle it. Wind blows a caution sign right under their feet as they go through the desert. Throughout light of the 33 million landmines that have been planted in the desert over the past 40 years, Mike takes the sign seriously. Tommy assures him it's only a Berber tactic to keep attackers away. Mike is still walking slowly and thinking about the warning notice. Tommy pokes fun at Mike for overthinking as he strolls backwards idly a few yards in front of him. Suddenly, there is a click, and then there is an explosion. Tommy tripped over a landmine. Mike takes a step towards Tommy, going briefly deaf, and hears another click where his foot just landed. In disbelief, he freezes. Tommy has been left with severed lower legs despite having survived the explosion. In agony, Tommy cries and trembles. Mike, who is unable to move, tries to calm Tommy down. When nothing seems to be working, Mike brings up Tommy's son, which inspires him and enables him to administer the morphine that the Marines carry in their front pockets. The pain then overtakes Tommy once more as he struggles to reach his radio. Mike volunteers to remove his foot from the landmine when he notices his partner Tommy suffering so he can assist him. Mike makes the assumption that the landmine he stepped on might be an outdated device. Tommy cautions him against doing so, and to stop Mike, he takes out a revolver and points it at his head. He shoots himself after telling Mike that he must live no matter what. Mike wails in agony, powerless. He is immobile and all by himself in the desert. He quickly grows weary of standing and drops to one knee. Mike thinks he needs to find a means to get the radio that is nearby Tommy but some distance away. In order to drag the radio bag closer himself, he fastens a shoelace to an axe. He finds out that the radio's battery is dead and that Tommy's body contains the spare. Mike is disappointed, but he comes up with another idea. He devises a temporary system to use solar energy to power the radio. After then, he asks for a quick evacuation but is informed that because of the frequent sandstorms, rescue helicopters cannot fly to his area. If all goes as planned, a convoy will bring him home in roughly 52 hours. Mike becomes upset at the answer. The Major then advises Mike to try digging a ditch and leaping in it, which would only cause a non-life-threatening limb loss. Setting a countdown on his watch, Mike chooses to wait it out and be tough. Then, a second, really large sandstorm strikes. He is able to remain in place and wait it out. When it's finished, the first thing he notices is that while the radio has drifted too far from his reach, the storm has brought Tommy's body, and thus the spare battery, right next to him. Hours elapse. Mike runs out of water, is more and more desperate, and occasionally considers killing himself. Then, when the Berber approaches him, he sees him moving diagonally. The Berber imitates Mike's gestures while he tries to warn him about the landmine, evidently poking fun of him. The Berber man refuses Mike's attempts to explain his situation to him and instead demands that Mike proceed. Then he snatches Mike's water bottle and vanishes into the arid landscape. When Mike witnesses a young Berber girl approaching him and giving back his water flask, Mike is relieved to find it filled with water when she offers it to him. Mike gets his thirst quenched. Even though the girl doesn't speak, she appears to be telling Mike to leave the mine using her toy soldiers. The young girl doesn't understand when Mike tells her he can't move and begs her to bring him his radio. Mike yells excessively out of desperation, scaring the girl away. Soon it will be nighttime, and the temperature will begin to dip. Mike starts a fire so he can stay warm. He begins to hear the sounds of wild animals. He takes out his phone and glances at the images of his lover to keep himself distracted. He comes across his girlfriend's video. Jenny informs Mike that she is waiting for him in the video. Mike needs to prevail in the conflict and return to her right now. Mike starts to feel sentimental. The possibility of never seeing his girlfriend again gives him anxiety. He begins to nod off since he is weary of all that is happening to him, but when he wakes up the fire has gone out. Wild creatures are all around him when he wakes up. He uses his rifle to try to frighten them, but he fails. Animals trample Tommy's body as they flee. One animal starts to go closer to him, but Mike shoots it with his gun while utilizing his torchlight. The animal steps on a landmine, setting off an explosion that frightens off the other creatures. The same Berber man stops by once more in the morning. He informs Mike that despite stumbling on a landmine and spending the night in the desert with wild animals, he is extremely fortunate to have survived this far. He asks Mike to walk forward once more, but Mike declines. He probably knows where the mines are because of the manner he always walks, according to Mike. The Berber replies that he is unaware of the location of the landmines and just walks in a zigzag pattern since it is safer than going straight. Mike requests his radio once more. Finally, the Berber man gives in, returns the radio to Mike, and goes on his way. Mike looks at his watch and sees that the assistants won't be there for another 24 hours. He gradually begins to get visions. Mike witnesses Tommy reviving from his demise. Mike is inspired by the fictitious Tommy, who assures him that he will survive this ordeal. Mike begins to reflect on all the mistakes he has made in his life as the sun begins to set once more. He begins to regret going on the mission and leaving his love Jenny alone. Once more, he is surrounded by animals. Even mine blasts cannot stop them this time. In the dark, Mike begins shooting at them randomly, but the animals continue to attack him. As he repels the wild beasts, he becomes preoccupied with his thoughts. Mike returns to reality as the sun is rising. Around him, every one of the wild beasts that had assaulted him lay dead. Despite being outnumbered, he was still able to exterminate every animal. For the past 45 hours, Mike has lain still in that desert by himself, with 1 foot over the mine. The rescue squad is now running behind schedule. His senior advises him in a message. If he can hang on for 17 hours, the senior asks. Mike responds that he has reached his breaking point and cannot continue any longer. The major informs him that he has a potential conversation partner. Then Mike overhears Jenny's voice. Mike quickly begins to apologize to her for leaving her, for ruining everything, and for leaving a mess wherever he goes. Then he begins to have visions and sees Jenny in the desert, sitting on a couch in front of him. He reaches out to her but gradually loses strength. When Berber spots him seemingly out of nowhere, he is about to collapse. The man begins tending to Mike's injuries while sharing his own experience of stepping on a mine that resulted in the loss of a limb. He says to Mike that losing his leg made him feel as though he had lost everything. When he married his wife and had a daughter, the pain of losing his leg, however, completely vanished. He asserts that we must carry on regardless of what happens in our lives. Mike informs the man that he is fortunate indeed because his daughter, who delivered the water, is stunning and has her father's grin. During one of their father-daughter outings to take out mines and replace them with tin cans, the woman perished in a mine explosion. The guy informs Mike that he no longer has a daughter. Mike is perplexed as he listens. The Berber informs him that while he is pleased that his daughter came to meet Mike, he must now go on. He then departs. Once more, Mike sees his daughter, but she vanishes with the wind in a flash. Mike resumes having hallucinations. He hears on the radio that the rescue squad is approaching and that he must give them his precise position. He pulls up his flare, but the terrorists from earlier start firing at him from over the hill before he can even use it. The gunshot causes a nearby mine to explode, sending the flare soaring out of Mike's hand and range. The terrorists are soon taken out by him once he immediately takes his sniper weapon. The flare is still inaccessible when the rescue crew passes by. Mike still recalls the Berber man's advice to keep going on. He moves forward and makes a leap of faith. There is no event or explosion. He discovers that the mine he thought he had trodden on was actually a tin can that the barber's daughter had likely placed there when she was still alive. Despite the non-lethal bullet wounds he received during the standoff, Mike feels relieved to be alive. Perhaps he was happy to hear that he would be saved. He is located by the rescue crew, and he goes back home. Jenny is at the airport back at home, waiting for him with tears of joy in her eyes. He kneels before giving her a hug, just like he has done at various points throughout his life. He then makes a marriage proposal to her, promising never to abandon her again.